All right. Good morning, and happy New Year. For those of you that we haven't seen each other this year, hope you guys are well. This prosperous new 2025. Hope you're well. Hope you had a good week on the charts and in everything else that you're doing. But we're really glad that you could join us this beautiful 17th day of January 2025. January seems to be going pretty fast. We're halfway there. So I think today is like day 50 of the 100 days of January. But for those of you that are new here, Karibuni Sana. John Bogo is my name. I'm a trader with Afriforex. Afriforex is a trading unit, so it's not a one-man show. So we do have the rest of the team here. So in case you do have any questions, feel free to ask them on the chat box, and definitely the team will be getting back to you. But I will also be trying to see whether I can look at a couple of questions on the chat box. But you don't really need to wait until the very end. You still can ask your questions even as the session does end up progressing on. So we're going to jump straight into it. So we'll start off by looking at the watch list, which is where we always start off. So you can see yesterday, the 16th of January 2025, what we're basically watching out for, and you can also see today. So feel free to take note of that. So you can see January the 17th right there. That's what we're going to be watching out for. But before we do jump into the setups for today, let's have a look at the currency pairs that we did have yesterday that unfortunately did not make it to our watch list this morning. So we'll start off with the Great British Pound against the Japanese yen. So for this one yesterday, we're trying to see whether we could have gotten some selling opportunities. So you can see the three areas right there that Mitch had pointed out, and also an extra level right above there, in case the market got all the way till there. But you can see that in the morning when we're looking at the charts, price was somewhere within this region here. So we're basically waiting to see whether we could have gotten a sign of the big boy sellers coming in. And you can also see an illustration of what we're expecting. The market did come down. I think this was during the London session. So you can see that from around 11, the market did start to come to the downside, but could have been a bit hard to read what was happening within here. Of course, this was the most preferred area to possibly get the selling opportunities to come down. But you can see that the market just fooled around within this region here. Of course, maybe would have expected the market to make lower lows and lower highs past that region, but unfortunately, it seems that the sellers just couldn't get past that area at the bottom right there. So unfortunately, not a currency pair we will be watching out for today. So the next one, this is the euro against the Japanese yen. For this one yesterday, we're trying to see whether we could have gotten some selling opportunities as well. So you can see the three areas and also an extra level at the top right there. Where we're watching out to possibly see whether we could get some selling opportunities, and also areas where we could have managed our trades. So you can see in the morning price was here, price came back in within this region. This was during the London session to around 11. Can't see the sellers showed up. Possibly did need to read this on a smaller time frame to get that selling opportunity coming down. But you can see that the market did come down, tapped within this area. Similar situation to what we've seen on the Great British Pound against the Japanese yen. So, I mean, the market just couldn't get past that region to the downside. But that's the reason why we always point out that you always need to make sure that you do some money management and make sure that you're on top of things. It's not just a matter of taking trades and just leaving them. Managing the trades is also part of trading, and it's a very, very important part of the trading aspect. So the next one, this is the Australian dollar against the New Zealand dollar. So for this one yesterday, we're trying to see whether we could have gotten some selling opportunities. So you can see the three regions right there that Mitch had pointed out, and also illustrations of what to possibly end up expecting. So in the morning, price was here. We're expecting price to come back in within that region. Unfortunately, it broke and held to the upside of this region. And for as long as it was holding above this region to the upside, there was no trade for us. Can't see that there was an attempt of the sellers to push to the downside earlier today. But unfortunately, not really a currency pair that we will be trying to see whether we can get any trading opportunities. Reason being, you could find that the market could actually end up moving sideways, considering the fact that the Australian dollar and the New Zealand dollar are both on the same side. So we don't really want to sign up to end up getting caught up in some sort of a range. So the next one, this is the New Zealand dollar against the Swiss franc. So for this one yesterday, trying to see whether we could have gotten some buying opportunities. You can see the three areas right there that Mitch had pointed out, and also some minor levels in between with the blue SNRs. So in the morning, price was somewhere within this region right here at around 9, 10 in the morning. So you can see that the market came down, bounced off this region. During the US session, you can see that the market gave a really good buying opportunity coming to the upside. You can see that the market just tapped within this region right here. You definitely did need to manage your trade within there. And unfortunately, I guess that's the only buying opportunity that was on the New Zealand dollar against the Swiss franc. Not really a currency pair that we will be trying to see whether we can trade today. So the next one, this is the New Zealand dollar against the US dollar. So for this one, yesterday we're trying to see whether we could have gotten some buying opportunities. So you can see the three regions right there. Also an illustration of what we're expecting. In the morning, price was here. Unfortunately, we couldn't break to the upside. Market pulled back in within this region here, and you can see that at exactly 4, which is during the US session open, that's when the market took off to the upside. So this one was just a matter of patience. Similar situation with the New Zealand dollar against the Swiss franc. So, I mean, the market times that we always keep on pointing out are very important. So we do have 11, which is the London market open. We have 4, which is the US session open, and 5:30, which is the New York Stock Exchange open. Those are very important times that you need to note. So in case you don't get the market moving during the London session, just be a bit patient. You could possibly find the market moving during the US session, and you could get some good opportunities there. So last but not least, in terms of the review, currency pairs, we do have the New Zealand dollar against the Canadian dollar. So for this one yesterday, we're also trying to see whether we could have gotten some buying opportunities. So you can see the 3 areas right here that Mitch had pointed out, and also an extra level in between there. So in the morning, price was here, expecting price to come back in within here. So all through the London session, the market was on the pullback phase. Then you can see that at 4, during the US session, that's when the big boys did actually end up showing up. And you can see that the market did push to the upside. The market struggled to hold above here. Unfortunately, you can see that the market has come back into the downside. Unfortunately, not really a currency pair that we will be watching out for today as well. But at least you can see that during the US session, the New Zealand dollar pairs did actually end up performing. So we're going to move on into some screenshots, or one screenshot rather, that we did end up getting from Christine. So shout out to you, Christine, or Sherry, if you're watching. So this is on gold. So you can see that you got some 2 good buying opportunities on this one. So one buy at the bottom right here, another buy somewhere within here, especially if you got this one on the pullback, then this was really good. And as the market was moving high up in your favor, at least your stop losses should have been at least somewhere within this region right here. Just make sure that you've secured as much as possible in case the market does end up turning against you. Because remember, this is the Forex market. It's quite unpredictable sometimes. So anything can happen and the market can turn against you. And you don't really want to end up giving up all the gains that you've made. But in terms of the entries, this is really good. The entry right there, especially if you got it on the pullback, this was really good. And of course, the addition right there. So it's just tightening up your money management. Stop losses, the reason why I'm saying your stop losses could be here is because this is the kind of push that's going up, and the buyers who are pushing up are somewhere within this region right here, which means that at least if you put your stop loss beneath that region, then that means that you're hiding behind the buyer who's pushing up. Anywhere within this region could be risky, because that means that you're also trying to corner the market. So at least if your stop loss is somewhere within here, then that should be good. But shout out to you for that. That's some really, really good trading. So keep up the good work. So shout out to you, Christine. And of course, remember, guys, if we do get any screenshots, whether good or bad, remember, this is not a competition. We just want to see what you guys are up to on the charts. And make sure that you do end up using us as a free resource. I mean, the advice that we give you here, we're not really charging you. But it also does end up giving us the motivation just to see that the information that we're giving you guys is going into good use, and also just seeing the progress of the screenshots, especially when we see your screenshots over time, and we can definitely see some sort of progress. We actually end up getting happy to see that. So feel free to send in your screenshots, whether good or bad. If they are bad, don't worry about it. We'll definitely give you the much needed advice that you need so that you can improve. So our contact details are right there in the video description. So feel free to send them in to us via WhatsApp. So shifting gears into matters today. So the 17th of January 2025. This is basically what our watch list is going to be looking like today. So we're going to be mixing and matching up the buys versus the sells in terms of the currency pairs. Then we'll move on to the indices and the commodities, which are pretty much the same as what we did end up having yesterday. So we'll start off with the Australian dollar against the Japanese yen. So for this one yesterday, we're trying to see whether we could have gotten some selling opportunities. So you can see the three regions that Mitch had pointed out, also an illustration of what to expect. The market pulled back, but not all the way till within this region, just came shy of that area. Then you can see that the sellers did actually react, push the market to the downside. Then you can see that later on the market broke to the downside. The pullback seems to be coming back in within this region here. So to some extent, it does end up looking like the market has broken that region to the downside. Remember that it's never a breach until we do have a pullback that actually ends up holding, or if the market does actually end up continuing to move to the downside and moves further away from this region or any region that it breaks for that reason, then at least at that point in time, we can actually end up saying that the market has broken. So this one, the market has broken to the downside, but it's a bit of a catch-22 situation. The reason why I say that is because we do have this region right here that's also giving some sort of issues, which means that even if you do end up getting some selling opportunities within this area here, you'll definitely need to manage your trade within here, because you could easily end up getting stuck in this sort of range that's going on within here. So if you're really looking for some good selling opportunities, it's either the market either comes to the upside of this region, at least you could find that the market could still come back in within here. And the reason why I say that is because lots of people are also looking to see whether they can get sales within here. And of course, there's no free money when it comes to FX. So a lot of guys could possibly end up getting trapped within this area. You could find that the market could actually end up coming back to the upside, come back in within here, and you could get some very good selling opportunity. That point in time, maybe somewhere within here. So you could watch out for that, or at least, if you're going to be looking for a much safer selling opportunity, then you're better off waiting for the market to possibly end up clearing this region to the downside. If you don't get any sales within here, because I know that some of you are real cowboys and real ninjas on the charts, then you just need to make sure that you do watch out for this region at the bottom here, or else you could easily end up getting taken for some sort of a roller coaster ride within this area right here. It might actually not end up being that pleasant. So just make sure that you watch out for that. But also remember the region at the top. You could find that the market can also end up pulling back in all the way to within there. If it does, then at least we should also be ready for that. So the next one, this is the Swiss franc against the Japanese yen. So for this one yesterday, we're trying to see whether we could have gotten some sales. Can't see the three areas right there that had been pointed out, also an illustration of what we're expecting. So the market pulled back in within this region here. And you can see that during the London session, the market started to move to the downside, some sort of a sign of the big boy sellers showing up within there. Can't see that last pullback coming in. So you can see that the big sell did actually end up happening during the US session from around 4. After that pullback did actually end up coming in. So this one did actually end up giving a very good sell during the US session, but the levels are more or less the same. So you can see that the market has not really moved far and beyond the regions that we're watching out for yesterday. So the story is still the same. Right now, in terms of looking for the selling opportunities, is not really the best of areas. So just be a bit patient, wait for the market to either break this region to the downside. If it does, then at least we could try and see whether we could get some conservative selling opportunities. If it doesn't, then at least we could actually end up waiting to see whether we could get the market coming back within this region here. And there's a possibility you could find the market back within this area right here. And the reason why I say that is because right now the market is holding within a region of support. So you could find that during the London session open, the London big boys could fast push the market to the upside. Then when the market comes back in within this region, maybe at around 4 or 5:30, during the US session, that's when you could find a good sell happening off that region there. So make sure that you watch out for that. But also remember that the market can also actually end up breaking to the downside, but you'll need to be patient. Make sure that you're not attempting to look for yourselves as the market is breaking to the downside, because you could easily end up getting caught up in some sort of a probe within this region here. But at least if the market breaks to the downside and pulls back in, then at least on the pullback, you could watch out for that. So also watch out for the region at the top, bit of a long shot, but like we always keep on pointing out, it's better to have something and not need it rather than need something and not have it. So it's okay to actually end up having that level right there. So the next one, this is the US dollar against the Japanese yen. So for this one, yesterday, we're watching out to see whether we could have gotten some selling opportunities as well. So you can see the three regions right there, also an illustration of what to expect. Similar situation with more or less the rest of the yen pairs that we've looked at. You know, the yen pairs tend to be well correlated most of the time. So you can see that this one, we're expecting sales to happen off here. The sales did actually start to happen during the London session. The market came down, but you can see the pullback came back in, and at 4, price was back within this region here. And you can see that that one did actually end up giving a sell that did actually end up moving faster. In fact, this was, I think, during the New York Stock Exchange open from around 5:30 or thereabout, and the market did attempt to break this region to the downside. So for this one for today, these are the same 3 areas that we're going to be watching out for. So you can take note of that. So let's see what happens. The story is the same as the Swiss franc against the Japanese yen. So in terms of the sales, not really the best of times to look for it, because in case this ends up being a probe, then we could possibly end up expecting the market to actually end up coming back in within this region, which means that the best selling opportunities right now are still somewhere within this area right here. The only time we'll look for the sales within this area is if the market does actually end up breaking to the downside, and maybe we do get an attempt of the buyers to break to the upside of this region, which ends up being unsuccessful. Then at that point in time, you could possibly try and see whether you could attempt some sales within here, but you'll definitely have to watch out for this area right here, or else you could easily end up getting taken for a ride within that region. So make sure that you watch out for that. Of course, remember the red SNR at the top. That's the aggressive area, the last area where we will be trying to see whether we can get our selling opportunities. If the market goes up all the way till the top, breaks above that region to the upside, and holds above it, then unfortunately at that point in time, there will be no trade for us. So the next one, this is the Canadian dollar against the Japanese yen. So for this one, yesterday we're trying to see whether we could have gotten some selling opportunities. You can see the 3 areas right there that had been pointed out, also an illustration of what to expect. In the morning, price came back in within this region. We're expecting some sort of a retest of this area right here, and that did technically end up happening. But you can see that the market started to move. This was at exactly during the London market open at 11. The market started to push to the downside. Unfortunately, we couldn't get a pullback coming back in all the way to within here like we've seen on the rest of the yen pairs, but you can see that the market came down, held within this region, some sort of a slight pullback coming back in, maybe till this SNR right there, before the market broke to the downside. And you can see that right now it's actually holding beneath this region to the downside. So for this one, the levels have been adjusted, of course, just to factor in the story of what's going on. So these are the 3 areas we will be watching out for. So right now, the market seems to be bouncing off this area. Let's see if we can get some sort of a retest coming back in somewhere as close as possible within this region here. We can get some sort of slowdown, you know, the buyers. Once the market comes in somewhere within there, there's also some sort of an SNR within here. So you could find that in case the market doesn't come all the way till within this region here, we could technically find the market coming back in within this area. And if that does end up happening, then we could also try and see whether we could get some selling opportunities off this region right here. So just make sure that you watch out for that. But generally, we want to get some selling opportunities as close as possible within this region right here. So let's see how far the buyers can actually end up going. Let them do their thing. Then after that, hopefully we'll get some good selling opportunities off this area here. So watch out for that. Also watch out for the region at the top. It's a bit of a long shot, but this being the FX market, anything is possible, and you could easily find the market coming back in all the way till within there. So last but not least, for the yen pairs, we do have the New Zealand dollar against the Japanese yen. So this is a new entrant on our watch list. We will be trying to see whether we can get some selling opportunities on this one. So do watch out for these 3 areas right here. So right now, in terms of the sales, not really the best of areas. Let's wait and see if we can either get the market breaking to the downside of this region. And if it does, and we do get the market pulling back in within here, then at least we could try and see whether we could get some sales. So a bit of patience, or a lot of patience, will be needed on this one. Alternatively, what could also end up happening is that the market could actually end up bouncing off this region to the upside. Let's see how far it can end up going. There's that semi-aggressive conservative region that we have somewhere within here, but also factor in that there are also quite a number of levels in between. We do have this area right here, which is not also a very bad area in terms of looking for the selling opportunities if the market does come back in within that region, because at least we want to get some sort of a pullback, you know, the opposite party getting incited before we actually end up looking for selling opportunities. So let's see if we can end up getting that. And of course, also remember the region at the top, a bit of a long shot, but in case the market does find its way there, then at least we should also be ready for that. So that's pretty much it in terms of the yen pairs. So right now we're going to move on to the euro pairs, mix and match them up with everything on the sell side. So we'll start off with the euro against the Australian dollar. So for this one, new entrant on our watch list, we're going to be trying to see whether we can get some selling opportunities, buying opportunities on this one. So hopefully you can end up taking note of these three areas right here. So the market is moving up, which is good, but remember that we always do need to see some sort of a pullback. So right now the market seems to be attempting to break above this region to the upside. So let's see if we can actually end up getting a sign of the big boy buyers showing up. But hopefully we can either get the market maybe attempting to calm down and we get a sign of the big buyers showing up. I think if the market does end up actually holding within this region here, especially after we visually see, that attempt of the sellers to push the market to the downside, then at least we could possibly try and see whether we could get some buying opportunities. Alternatively, what we could end up doing is if the market does break to the downside and it actually holds within here, then we'll have to wait and see if we can get the market pulling back in somewhere as close as possible within here. And you could find that that buy, especially if the market comes back in within here, could actually end up becoming some sort of a real winner, or a big winner. So just make sure that you actually do end up watching out for that. But remember that the red SNR, in case the market breaks and holds beneath that region to the downside, then unfortunately there will be no trade for us. So the next one, this is the euro against the Swiss franc. So this is also a new entrant on our watch list, and we will be trying to see whether we can get some buying opportunities. So hopefully you can end up taking note of those three areas right there. So these are the three areas we will be watching out to see whether we can get some trades in, and also areas where we can manage our trades. So right now the market is dead in the middle of two areas. So I wouldn't really advise you to end up looking for any trades, but at least if the market does end up coming back in, somewhere as close as possible within here, then this could be good. Or if the market does continue to rally up, then let's see if we can actually end up getting the market breaking above this region to the upside. Because if you do end up attempting buys within here, the problem that you're going to face is that there are quite a number of supported resistance areas that are in between within this region. And you can't see that the market is already ranging between this region. So if you do sign up for a buy somewhere within here, you might actually end up getting taken for a ride. And eventually you could possibly end up getting stopped out. So just make sure that you do actually end up waiting. Let's see if you can get the market coming back in within here. If it doesn't, then I think the next best buy might actually end up being somewhere within this region here. And this buy might possibly end up giving you lesser issues than maybe attempting to come up with the market within this area here. So just make sure that you do watch out for that. And of course, remember the red SNR at the bottom. In case the market breaks and holds beneath that region to the downside, then there will be no trade for us. So the next euro pair, this is the euro against the US dollar, also a new entrant on our watch list. And we will be trying to see whether we can get some buying opportunities on this one. So watch out for those three areas right there. We do have some sort of a pullback coming in, which is good. So you can see that the bars showed up. This was yesterday during the US session. Right now, the market is coming in. It's coming in nice and slow, which is good. Let's see if we can get the sellers slowing down somewhere as close as possible within here. Also, watch out for the times. If you do find the market back within here, maybe at around 11 or thereabout during the London market open, then at least you could get some very good buying opportunity off this region to come up. Just make sure that you watch out for the region at the top. Seems like the market is getting into some sort of a range within this area here, which you just need to make sure that you do manage your trade at the top right there, because you could easily find the market reacting off that region to the downside. But at least in terms of looking for the buys here, we're at the bottom of the range. In terms of location, that area is quite spot on. So just make sure that you also watch out for the region at the bottom. In case the buyers do actually need a much better price, then at least also just make sure that you're ready for that. Could find the market spiking or possibly end up tapping within that region at the bottom. And if it does, then at least you should also be ready to look for your buying opportunities at the aggressive area. So the next one, this is the euro against the Canadian dollar. So for this one, also a new entrant on our watch list. We're going to be trying to see whether we can get some buying opportunities. Can't see that the market was going up yesterday, especially during the US session. Rather, and you can't see that right now we have some sort of a pullback that's coming in. The pullback is coming in nice and easy, which is good. So hopefully we can get the market coming back in within this region, watching out for the times. hopefully we should get some sort of a reaction during the London session. Hopefully we don't, and maybe the market needs a bit more time to set itself up. Then we'll be watching on to see what happens maybe during the US session from around 5:30. You could find the buys actually happening off this region at that time. So just make sure that you watch out for that. Also watch out for the region at the bottom. You could easily find the market back within that region there. And if it does find its way there, then at least you should also be watching out to see whether you can get a buying opportunity at that point in time. So last but not least, for the euro pairs, we do have the euro against the New Zealand dollar. So for this one, also a currency pair we had yesterday, but yesterday we were going the other way. We're trying to see whether we could have gotten some selling opportunities. So the red SNR was high up within there, and this level was down within here. You can see also some sort of an illustration that Mitch had pointed out of what maybe could have expected. Unfortunately, the market couldn't break and hold beneath this region to the downside for us to look for selling opportunities. You can see that the market attempted to come up, tapped somewhere within this region before the sellers attempted to come down, but unfortunately the market just couldn't make lower lows and lower highs, which I guess was also something to do with the New Zealand dollar pairs, because I also did end up having an attempt on the Great British Pound against the New Zealand dollar, which we will be looking at in a bit. And unfortunately, the big boys were just not interested in buying the New Zealand dollar, and that's the reason why we've also switched it today. So for this one, we're going to be going the other way. So the levels are the same. It's just switching the levels up. So the red SNR has come down here. So right now we're looking for buying opportunities. The market is going up. Don't chase the buys. There are definitely lots of people who are chasing the buys right now worldwide, but it's better to possibly end up waiting for that confirmation, because the market could easily end up doing something like that. And all the guys who are hitting their buys up there will actually end up getting left hanging somewhere at the top there. So just make sure that you're a bit kind to yourself. Let's first see what does end up happening. At least if the market does attempt to come down, come back up, maybe hold, maybe you visually see attempts of the market to actually end up breaking to the downside, but the big boys keep pushing the market to the upside. Then at that point in time, you could possibly end up attempting some conservative buying opportunity within here. But in case that doesn't end up happening, and let's say we get the market actually breaking to the downside and actually holds to the downside of this region, then I guess we'll have to wait and see if we can't get the market coming back in within here. If it does, you'll possibly find that some good buying opportunities could possibly end up happening off this region much later on. So the market might need a bit of time to set itself up. Maybe it might need the whole of the London session pull back in within this region before the US big boys actually show up and push the market to the upside. So just need to be a bit patient on this one, but also remember the red SNR at the bottom. It's a bit of a long shot, but at least if the market does find its way there, like I keep on pointing out, then at least you should be ready for that. So that's pretty much it in terms of the euro pairs. So right now we're going to move on to the GBP pairs, and we're going to mix and match up the Great British Pound with everything on the sell side. So we'll start off with the Great British Pound against the Australian dollar. So for this one, new entrant on our watch list, we're going to be trying to see whether we can get some buying opportunities on this one. So do watch out for these three areas right here. So we do have the semi-aggressive conservative region there, and the conservative all the way at the top, somewhere within that region there. So you can see that the market to some extent looks like it's not a perfect range, but at least it gives you an idea that there are sellers somewhere within this area here, and there are buyers down within this area. So the best area to look for the buyers is definitely down within here. So if we could get the market maybe giving us some sort of a messy pullback coming back in within here, because remember, we don't want to see the aggressive sellers coming in. If we do get aggressive sellers coming in, then we'll have a problem on our hands in terms of looking for the buys. You could find that the market could really struggle to lift off this region right here. But at least if we do get some sort of a messy choppy pullback coming back in within here, maybe you could find that during the US session, maybe the market might be back within here for us to actually end up looking for the buys. You could target all the way at the top, somewhere within there. But just make sure that you do watch out for this area, do some good money management within here, because you can visually see that there are sellers who are sitting within that area who could potentially give you some sort of issues. So watch out for that. Let's see what happens in case the market breaks beneath this region to the downside and can't come above this area to the upside, and actually hold above that region. And unfortunately, at that point in time, we'll actually end up having to fall back in terms of looking for buying opportunities. So watch out for that. Let's see what happens also in case the market does decide to actually end up breaking above this region to the upside. Patience is key. Let's we'll have to end up waiting to see if the market can actually end up sustaining above this region, especially on the pullback. Then at least the next best buy could possibly be somewhere within here. Any buys within here, well, you could end up looking for buys, but I would say that those ones could potentially end up having way more higher risk, because generally within that area, you're also getting within a region that does have a bunch of sellers who are sitting within that area. So you're better off either waiting for the market to go away from it to the downside, or maybe once the sellers are taken out to the upside, then you could potentially try and see whether you could get some proper buying opportunities. So the next one, this is the Great British Pound against the Swiss franc. So this is also a new entrant on our watch list today. So we'll be trying to see whether we can get some buying opportunities. This one doesn't look too bad. If you look at the reactions that have happened off this region right here before by the buyers, it definitely tells us that the buyers are alive within this area here. You can see that yesterday during the US session, the market went up quite aggressively, and you can see that the pullback has been coming in, giving us a sequence of lower lows and lower highs, which means that the sellers are coming in nice and slow, nice and easy, which is good. So hopefully during the London session, we should potentially end up getting the market lifting off this region to the upside. Could potentially target all the way high up there. But just make sure that you also watch out for this mid area right here, because you can see that there's also some sort of a resistance area within this region that could potentially give you some sort of issues. So just make sure that you watch out for that. You can see that yesterday during the US session, the market went up, but the buyers who had come up quite aggressively within this region were still shut down by the sellers who are sitting within this area. So you shouldn't just assume that the market will just end up blasting through that region to the upside. I know that's what I mean, as a trader and you're in on a buy, you want that buy to continue moving up forever, but you also need to make sure that you're also realistic in terms of what the markets are telling you and what the charts are telling you. So just make sure that you watch out for this region. For those of you that are really good at trading, I mean, when the market breaks above here to the upside, you could potentially end up scaling in within this region right here. You could potentially end up, getting even way more and maximizing on this distance right here. So just make sure that you watch out for that. And of course, remember the red SNR, in case the market breaks beneath that region to the downside, unfortunately, there will be no trade for us. So the next one, this is the Great British Pound against the US dollar. So this is also a new entrant on our watch list this morning. So we'll be trying to see whether we can get some buying opportunities on this one as well. So watch out for these three regions right here. You can see that the market is pulling back in, which is good. Let's see if we can get the market back within this region right here, especially during the London market open, at least at around 11 or there, about 11:30. Sometimes the market starts to move 30 minutes into the session. So just make sure that you watch out, especially for that first hour, I would say. Could potentially find the big boys coming in, and hopefully if they do come back in, then hopefully we should be tapping back within this region right here. So just make sure that you watch out for that, but also remember that the market can also break beneath this region to the downside, especially if the big boys are looking for a much better price. Then just make sure that you also watch out for this region down within this area right here. But that's going to be the last area where we will be trying to see whether we can get aggressive buying opportunities. So the next one, this is the Great British Pound against the Canadian dollar. So for this one, also a new entrant on our watch list. We will be trying to see whether we can get some buying opportunities. So these are the three areas that we will be watching out for. So hopefully you can end up taking note of them. So aggressive down within this region here, semi-aggressive conservative, and the conservative right at the top there. This one has a bit of a long way to go for the pullback, but the market can still come back in within this region. So let's just wait and see what does end up happening. You could find that maybe during the London session, the market could still be on the pullback. Maybe during the US session, that's when the market could potentially be ready to actually end up making a move to the upside. So just make sure that you watch out for that. Be a bit patient. Remember that patience is key when it comes to trading. If you're not patient, then unfortunately you're going to be giving out money. So just make sure that you're really patient. Make sure that you really wait for the setups to set themselves up properly before you actually do end up taking a trade. And also in terms of increasing the probability of your trades working out, make sure that you buy with buyers, sell with sellers. And that's the reason why you're seeing that it's better off to actually end up waiting for the market to come back in within this region. We have some sort of a support region within this area right here. Of course, the buyers who are pushing up or pushed up are somewhat down within this region. The reason why we have this area is because we could potentially find the market giving us some sort of a retest coming back in within this area, because most of the time what normally happens is that when the market breaks a certain level, it will possibly end up giving you some sort of a retest coming back in. So it's better to actually end up waiting for the retest. There are guys who could potentially end up looking for buys within here. But remember, if you put your stops anywhere within this region right here, then your stop loss is within the line of fire. You could easily end up getting short. And you see, if you end up putting your stop loss all the way down within here, and your problem area is somewhere within here, then you see the risk to reward does actually end up going off. So that's the reason why I'm saying that patience is key. You know, the best setups on the charts don't easily show up, but at least when they do, and you're ready for them, you definitely can end up making the most out of them. So last but not least, in terms of the currency pairs, we do have the Great British Pound against the New Zealand dollar. So for this one yesterday, we're trying to see whether we could have gotten some selling opportunities. So you can see the three regions right there that Mitch had pointed out, also an illustration of what to expect. So in the morning, price was somewhere within this region here. Price came down, pulled back in within this area. This was actually a trade that I did actually end up taking, and I timed the trade somewhere within here. The entry was good. Unfortunately, the market couldn't come down all the way. I was actually expecting to maybe manage some of the trade down within this region right here. Unfortunately, the market just didn't get all the way down to within this area. And when the market pulled back in within that region where my entry was, basically based on what's illustrated there, unfortunately I did end up getting stopped out, which was a real shame. But you know, at the end of the day, what we always say is a break-even exit. The way I normally look at it is a break-even exit is better than a loss any day. So I was up, but unfortunately when the market did end up coming back in within here, I didn't expect it to come back in, but unfortunately it did, and unfortunately it did end up getting stopped out. Didn't really end up coming out with much, but it's okay. Today is another day. We'll be back at it. So for this one, for today, we'll be trying to see whether we can go the other way. So we're not going to be trying to see whether we can get selling opportunities. We're actually going to be trying to see whether we can get buying opportunities on this one. But for this one, it's not really looking the best in terms of buys right now. I mean, unless someone got the buys earlier on and you're enjoying the profits as the market is going up, if you're trying to see whether you can actually end up getting an entry on this one, you have to be a bit more patient. So it's either the market continues to rally up, could easily end up tapping within that region, and you could find that the market could be on some sort of a pullback phase. Maybe during the US session, that's when maybe we'll possibly end up getting the next buying opportunity happening. So we could wait for something like that. Or in case the market does actually end up breaking above this region to the upside, then at least on the pullback, you could try and see whether you could get a buying opportunity. But in terms of the buys on this one right now, there's not really much happening. You're better off looking at the rest of the GBPs that are actually giving some sort of pullbacks in terms of looking for buying opportunities, maybe in the near future. This one might possibly end up having to give an opportunity maybe during the US session, but we'll have to wait and see what does end up happening. So that's pretty much it in terms of the currency pairs. So hopefully you guys can actually end up taking note of that for those of you that haven't. So we're going to be moving on to the indices and the commodities. There's no change on that front. You can see that they're all still on the buy side. So we'll start off with the NAS 100. So on the NAS 100 yesterday, we're trying to see whether we could have gotten some buying opportunities. So you can see the three areas that Mitch had pointed out, also an illustration or illustrations of what to expect. So in the morning, price was here. We expected the market to possibly break to the upside, pull back in, maybe an attempt of the sellers to break beneath here before we look for the buys. But you can see that the market actually held above here, but unfortunately the buyers were nowhere to be seen. So you can't see that the market broke to the downside, and you can't see that the pullback did actually start to happen for the market to actually come back in within this region. Maybe the big boys are also trying to stop out a number of people who are actually trying to join them. Remember that the big boys don't actually want you to make money. They actually want to make money off you. So all the guys who are hitting buys at the top when the market was high up within there, then at least you can see that within this region as the market is pulling back in, they're definitely getting stopped out. Maybe a good number of them are possibly also starting to turn into sellers. And that's definitely what the big boys want. So for this one, let's see if we can get the market coming back in within here. If it does, I think the best buying opportunities are somewhere within here. And there's still a possibility the market could come back in. if you look at the story of what's happening, if you look at how the sellers came down within this region right here yesterday and how the buyers are retaliating, you can definitely see that the buyers are definitely weaker than the sellers, which means that there's still a possibility that the sellers can still react and you could technically find the market coming back in within this area right here. If that does end up happening, then I think the best buying opportunities are definitely within here. So just make sure that you watch out for that. The bias is still to look for buys. Remember that for as long as we're holding above the red SNR, we should be looking for buying opportunities on the indices and the commodities. If you do end up getting some selling opportunities, you could end up taking them, but just make sure that you're well aware that the selling opportunities that you're taking are actually counters, and counters can actually end up being quite risky. So moving on into the next one, this is the US 30 or the WS 30 on MT5, the Dow Jones. So for this one, yesterday, trying to see whether we could have gotten some buying opportunities. There were no clear buying opportunities on this one yesterday, but you can see the three areas that had been pointed out. We couldn't get the pullback coming back in within here. The market couldn't also break above this region to the upside, and you can see that the market was in some sort of a mess within this region here. Seems that there's also some sort of an SNR that's somewhere within this area right here, and you can see that the buyers have been trying to fire to the upside of this region here, but unfortunately they just can't get past this region to the upside. So for this one, what we could technically find is that the market could possibly end up reacting to the downside, and you could get the market coming back in within this region, somewhere within here. If that does end up happening, I'm thinking maybe some good buying opportunities could still be somewhere within this region here, because it seems that this price is not good enough for the buyers to actually end up reacting based on the reactions that we can visually see. I mean, if you look at how the buyers reacted before and how they're reacting now, it seems that even their reaction right now is even way weaker than what it was the previous other times that the market has been firing off this region right here. So you could technically find that maybe the market may actually not end up breaking above this region to the upside. But remember that this is pure speculation. You know, the market has a mind of its own. We're just trying to translate what we can end up seeing, but it does seem like maybe the buyers might actually not end up getting past this region, and we could find the market back within here. However, if they do end up going past this region, because you know you can't quite tell what the big boys could be up to. If the market breaks above this region to the upside on the pullback, if the market holds above that region to the upside, then at least at that point in time, I think we can actually end up looking to see whether we can get some conservative buying opportunities. So make sure that you do watch out for that, but there's a high probability price could be coming back in within here. The reason why we also say that over and above looking at the reaction of the buyers going up is the fact that you can see that on Wednesday, the market actually went to the upside quite aggressively, and there was a region somewhere within here that the market broke, which is quite visible on the bigger time frame. So there's a high probability that the market could actually end up coming back in within this region for some sort of a retest. And maybe before the market comes back in within here, you possibly could find maybe the big boys coming back in. And that's the reason why you can't see that after this move going to the upside, the big boys in terms of the buyers are not quite there. And that has definitely thrown the market into some sort of confusion. So you can imagine all the guys who are hitting buys when the market is somewhere within that region and it's actually not moving, they've been thrown into some sort of confusion, maybe some into panic mode, maybe others into prayer and fasting mode. So you could find that there's a high probability the market could actually end up pulling back. So just make sure that you watch out for that mid area. So the next one, this is silver. Now for silver yesterday, we're trying to see whether we could have gotten some buys. Can't see the three areas right there that Mitch had pointed out. Also illustrations of what maybe we're expecting. Unfortunately, also this one, you can't see that the market just wasn't moving. Although maybe some short-term buying opportunities to the upside, but not really anything worth mentioning. So let's see if we can possibly end up getting something today. So we've adjusted the areas on this one. So we possibly could find some good buying opportunities lifting off this region here. You can see that the market is actually pulling back in within that region. So let's see if we can get the sellers possibly slowing down within this area, maybe get a sign of the big buyers showing up before we actually do end up getting some good buying opportunities off this region right here. Could possibly end up finding some sort of a spike maybe happening within here, you know, as the market attempts to get a better price than this. So just make sure that you do watch out for that. But at least if we do get the market coming back into the upside of this region, I think if you do attempt buys after that, I think those buying opportunities should actually end up working out pretty well. So just make sure that you watch out for the region at the top. Definitely a region you'll need to watch out for. You can't see that sellers are sitting within here. So at least even if you will be targeting areas higher than that, just make sure that you do actually end up managing your trade within that region at the top. So last but not least, we do have gold, or as Mitch loves to call it, the fan favorite. But I think this one is the one that has actually sent the most number of people home in the Forex market. So for this one yesterday, we're trying to see whether we could have gotten some buying opportunities. So you can see the three regions that Mitch had pointed out, also an illustration of what to expect. So in the morning, price was here. We're expecting maybe to get some sort of a pullback coming in. Unfortunately, that didn't happen. And you can see that the market broke to the upside, went even higher before the market pulled back in within this region and gave a buying opportunity during the US session. So this one did end up working out pretty well. And you can see that gold has been making higher highs and higher lows of late. Let's see if today is still going to be the case, but at least you can see that some sort of pullback has come back in after some sort of a higher high within that region there, at least expecting the market to come back in within this region. It has come back in. We'll just need to wait and see if we can get, hopefully, the bars showing up. You can see that the sellers have started to slow down. We compare how they came down the previous time and this hold, and then right now the market coming back in. This could be pretty good, but let's see. Maybe the market might attempt to spike lower, just for the sellers or the last sellers who are there to actually end up coming out of their orders. And of course, maybe just to incite those breakout traders to possibly end up looking for selling opportunities within here before the market does end up coming back into the upside. So let's see what happens on this one. Also watch out for the region at the bottom. There's a probability you could find that this one could move during the US session. The indices and the commodities, normally tend to have a tendency of doing that. So in case we don't find any movement during the London session, then I guess we'll just have to end up being a bit more patient, possibly waiting to see what does end up happening during the US session. So I guess that's pretty much it in terms of everything. Once again, for the guys who joined it late, feel free to take note of that. This is what the watch list is going to be looking like. In case you also missed out on anything or you want to recap specific parts of session today, also make sure that you also do end up rewatching this on YouTube. At least the recording is there. I know lots of guys used to ask about that, but at least that's there. So at least you can actually end up making good use of that. So let's see if there are any questions on the chat box. So I see Doba Africa, good to see you there. You're saying when trying to trade the market opens, e.g. the London session, does the entries have to be at 11? I think you're asking 11 a.m. candle. Well, not necessarily. Also remember one thing, Doba, it's the times that we always point out for or watch out for, it's somewhere within that time. It's not exactly at 11, because you could find that some of the time and most of the time, the markets normally start to move like 30 minutes, an hour into the session. So you'll find that, when the big boys, the way they trade is not like you. For you just need to open your device, whether your computer or your tab or your phone, and you start firing trades. For them, they first need to look at the economic data before they actually end up taking the trades. It needs to go through checks and balances from the various department heads before they actually decide to actually take and put their money on something. Because remember that they're trading a lot of money. There are lots of checks and balances that need to be made. So you'll find that maybe 30 minutes in, after they check in, they'll need to end up looking at all that economic data. All the checks have been done. All the bosses have certified that that's exactly what we should be doing, whether buying the yen or selling the New Zealand dollar or whatever. So you'll find that maybe 30 minutes, an hour, that's where you normally tend to find that the markets tend to move. It doesn't mean that you can't find the markets moving at 11 or at 4 or at 5:30, the times that we keep on stating. But you'll find that it's somewhere within that time that generally you'll find the markets moving. But it's also dependent on what the story is. So it's not a matter of, okay, it's 11, the market is at a region of support, so I'm just going to be hitting a buy. It's also a matter of factoring in, how did the market approach that level? before you actually end up taking the trade, have the big boys possibly ended up showing up. And even if the big boys do end up showing up, let's say at 11, it's okay to actually end up waiting for the pullback, just to get that extra bit of certainty before you actually do end up taking the trade. So sometimes you'll find the markets moving at those times. Sometimes you'll find it moving maybe a couple of minutes, maybe an hour. So it's generally within that time. So I wouldn't say that just make sure that you end up taking a trade within those times. You could find that you could still end up getting stopped out even if you end up doing that. So there's quite a lot that you also need to factor in, but that's a really good question. So thank you, Doba, for that. So I'm not really seeing any more questions, which is perfectly fine. Also, remember, if you do want to get an MT5 trading account, you can end up getting that. You can also end up getting the link for that. It should be in the video description. You can end up getting a free MT5 trading account with a preferred broker. So I guess that's pretty much it from me and from us. I want to thank guys so much for making the time to be here with us today and also this week. This has been the first week that we're here. Hopefully it's going to be a good year on the charts. Let's see how things end up going. Also remember to like and subscribe and also share this video in case you do find this information useful. And of course, remember that doing all that is absolutely free. If you do end up getting a bill, make sure that you do send it in to us and Afriforex will end up settling the bill. So I guess we'll see you guys on Monday. So with that, happy trading and bye for now. The peeps will be with you. God bless.